Welcome to Spectacle on Television Nigeria. I am your host, Daniel Atai. Come on, be seen. This President Muhammadu Buhari over 78.9 billion naira road infrastructural fund released to Rivers State government. And in another development, National Assembly puts a hold to proposed hike in electricity distribution in Nigeria. Welcome to Spectacle, and I am Daniel Atai. We take a short break, and when we come back, our guest in the studio will analyze these issues of governance. Please stay tuned. Welcome back. It is also open to audience participatory as the numbers and Zoom handle are displayed on the screen for you to contribute your quota. And with me in the studio is Mr. Leke Olateru Olagbegi. Mr. Leke is a public infrastructure and finance consultant. Mr. Leke, you're welcome to Spectacle.
Thank you very much, Daniel. How are you?
Well, I'm okay. Today we'll first of all look into the Rivers story before we go into the electricity issue, which I know is more or less your field as a finance and infrastructural consultant.
Yeah, sure.
All right, we go into the Wike story, and the refund of 98.9 billion road infrastructural fund given to the Rivers State government by Mr. President is making a serious wave in the country, and especially from the Rivers State government, with the eulogies that are accolades ascribed to Mr. President by the Rivers State government. The Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike has implored President Muhammadu Buhari to accept invitation for a state visit when called on, following the refund of 78.9 billion to the state government. Wike stated this in a letter also published in a national daily. He said, "I wish to, on behalf of the government and people of Rivers State, appreciate and most sincerely thank you for graciously approving the refund of the sum of 78.9 billion naira to the Rivers State government as cost of execution of federal government road project in the state. Let me also, through you, thank the Vice President, His Excellency Professor Yemi Osinbajo, GCON, as well as other members of the Federal Executive Council for the support they provided to our request. Mr. President has, by this remarkable and heartwarming gesture, shown not only your love for the government and people of Rivers State, but also demonstrated expressively that you are indeed a president for every state of the Federation and all Nigerians. I assure you that the Rivers State government is willing and ever ready to cooperate and partner with the federal government to advance the developmental aspirations of Rivers State in particular and our nation in general. I wish to therefore appeal to Mr. President to kindly oblige us with a state visit when invited to see what we have accomplished for the state and our people with the money. Once again, thank you, Mr. President, and please be assured of our profound esteem. As always, Wike had in the past attacked the federal government. At one time, he accused the president of politicizing the fight against coronavirus. Now, this is this is very interesting.
Yes, indeed.
And I think it is an interesting political scenario playing all the way from Rivers State and the Rivers State governor, Nyesom Wike. What would you say about this new relationship? What could you say
between
Wike and the federal government
and the federal, the presidents of the Federal Republic of Nigeria?
Exactly.
Well, this story brings a big smile to my face because everyone who's followed the matter over the last few years knows that the governor, that's Mr. Wike, and the president have they've never seen eye to eye. so hearing him saying these kind of nice things about the president, I'm like, indeed, the truism is correct that says there are no permanent enemies
in politics. No permanent friend,
no permanent enemies.
All permanent interest.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So in truth, it's a good move by the federal government to release the money. And as you can imagine, the current governor of Rivers State is lucky to be the one to receive this payment, because I'm sure previous governors before him have tried to receive some of this money and they couldn't. So for him to receive this large windfall of money, 78 billion, is significant. This would help him to hopefully carry out more capital projects in Rivers State to contribute to the development of the state.
Okay.
On the part of the government, the federal government of Nigeria, kudos to them.
Yeah.
And of course, I wouldn't expect to hear any difference from the governor, Mr. Wike.
You wouldn't? Okay.
I would not expect to hear any different from him.
Is expected.
Yes.
Because money is talking.
When you get 78 billion.
You weren't even expecting the money. And you, unlike others, I think this is a big gesture from Mr. President. And it is a demonstration of leadership.
Yeah. Well, that's what he's supposed to do. I mean, I would rather not blow Mr. President's trumpet.
Okay, compared to previous administration.
Compared to previous administrations, yes. It's a fantastic step.
78.
And I hope they can do. And I hope also that this is not the more you look, the less you see situation.
Yeah.
We would like to see the same gesture being extended to other state governments as well.
That is, if other states have used their state funds for road infrastructure.
Absolutely. But we know that other states have done this. So it's not just Rivers State. We know this, but let's leave that matter.
Okay. It's okay. So, and if other states have done road infrastructure or other infrastructure with their state fund, they can approach the federal government for fund.
Absolutely.
Because I have seen this, during Obasanjo's time, Lagos State government, then under Bola Tinubu, said to have done so many road infrastructure and other social amenities, but their funds were never released to them by the federal government.
Yeah.
Not even the statutory allocation for Lagos State government were even released to them. So this is democracy in practice now, I could say.
Yeah.
And we really have to appreciate, we have to join the Rivers State governor
in extending appreciation
to Mr. President and the federal government under his leadership. It is a welcome development, and this is what we want: governance rather than politics, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Governance rather than politics. You will not say, Mr. President wouldn't say, this is PDP state, the way others used to do it. This is PDP state, and this is not APC state, and therefore, whatever happens there, the people can go to hell. We have seen a new blueprint, a new manifesto being orchestrated by Mr. President, and really, I felt we should bring this to the limelight. And Mr. Wike, who also seems to be so... who has presented himself to eulogize Mr. President after so many rigors and vigors. We thank Mr. Wike. It's a good development. In another development, like we promised you, the National Assembly, in both arms of the National Assembly, under the leadership of Ahmed Lawan in the Senate and Femi Gbajabiamila at the House of Representatives, have collectively disagreed about the proposed hike of electricity tariff in the country, saying it is not time and that the hike will have to commence from first quarter of next year, that is 2021. And we have to bring it to your knowledge that which is better, the hike or no hike at all. Has we gotten electricity distribution across the 774 local government areas in Nigeria or not? Is the supply of electricity from DISCO okay now or not before hiking the fee? And is the step taken by the National Assembly a fantastic one or a kind of placing it in the interim so that in the long run we can begin to receive hike in the price of electricity supply? We have a compendium or a kind of a background report for you there to watch. Please stay tuned with the video.
The leadership of the National Assembly on Monday waded into the controversy on the planned hike in electricity tariffs from July 1st, 2020 and succeeded in convincing the distribution companies to defer the plan till the first quarter of 2021. This was contained in a statement issued late Tuesday by the Special Advisor to the Senate President on Media and Publicity, Ola Awoni. The statement read, "The President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, writes, Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, and other principal officers of the two chambers met at the National Assembly with the Chief Executive of the government, electricity regulatory body, and DISCOs across the country. Also in attendance were the chairman of the committees on power from the Senate and the House of Representatives. The National Assembly leaders were emphatic at the meeting that the timing of the planned hike was wrong, even though there is the need to introduce a cost-reflective tariffs for the power sector to attract the much-needed investment. In the course of the meeting, the DISCOs too admitted that they were not well prepared for the planned hike in tariffs, even though they so much desired the increase. The meeting agreed to defer the planned hike till first quarter of next year, while the leadership of the National Assembly promised to meet with President Muhammadu Buhari on the issue. The agreement here is that there is not going to be any increase in the tariffs on July 1st, Lawan said at the end of the meeting. The Speaker and I are going to take appropriate action and meet with the President. We are in agreement here that there is no question on the justification, but the time is simply not right and appropriate measures need to be put in place. So, between now and the first quarter of next year, our task will be, we'll work together with you to ensure that we put those blocks in place to support the eventual increase in tariffs," Lawan told the executive officers.
Welcome back. And that background reportage has been what transpired as the stand of the National Assembly against the hike in electricity supply in Nigeria. Mr. Leke, what is actually going on? The planned or proposed hike of electricity tariff in the country. Have we even gotten the supply adequately in the country in the first instance?
Okay. Well, the issue of it's not a planned hike.
Okay.
I mean, like, it was planned in the last 3 months. Because the MITO was set up a few years ago this so-called tariffs we talk about, there's something NEC created, which is called the multi-year tariff order, which is like a planned tariff system which would reflect the cost of operation within the industry, the power sector, and which would allow all the operators to cover their revenues and receive a reasonable premium on their investments. So it didn't just happen by accident. That's the planned hike. If you look at the MITO, it is planned to increase gradually. And the reason for that is very simple. The cost of generating power is huge. You don't want people in the economy, the consumers, to have to pay the huge cost of the generation of power at the very beginning. So what they did was to phase it out over a period. That, for example, if there's an investment in a power project and it takes around 20 years to recoup the cost of that project, then the owners of the project should be able to know that within X period of time, we would be able to recoup our money. So the first thing I need to say is, it didn't happen by surprise. It was always going to happen. Now, as to the development where the Senate and the House of Reps are saying, look, you can't increase it at this time, well, I fully agree.
No. They said, the Senate President, Ahmed Lawan, even said, though it is normal for them to increase the price now, but they should not do it now.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Is there any justification that it is even normal for them to hike price of electricity in this country in the first instance?
Yes, Daniel.
Sure.
Please
explain to Nigerians.
As much as that might sound like an unpopular statement for people who are currently not receiving power, and who are getting billed for it, it was always going to happen. One of the most capital intensive projects in any country is power generation. So, like I explained earlier, if we have to go back to the time when we had this chaos and they were trying to unbundle the NEPA into PHCN and into the DISCOs, TCN and GENCOs, all of these plans were made to ensure that people don't get overburdened from the beginning. Now, at the time when the MITO was created, the question was, look, if you bill people too high at the beginning, you might create a situation where people are even unable to pay at all. That was why they created this fragmented, tariff system where tariffs are increased over time. Now, I need to make a clarification.
Okay.
The people who receive power are the ones who are being billed. The ones who don't get power do not get billed. So for those who receive power, naturally, it's going to happen that they will have to pay for power. You see, and then another thing which I have to talk about, Nigeria, a lot of Nigerians, I'm not talking about poor people, I'm talking about even educated people like you and I, who have the impression that, look, we have a sense of entitlement to the wealth of this country. So Nigeria has to subsidize petrol. Nigeria has to subsidize kerosene. Nigeria has to subsidize the cost of power. Hey, but look, it's about time we all woke up and smelt the coffee. The government is unable to continue those subsidies. Let me tell you something. Today, Nigeria has take-or-pay contracts with certain GENCOs. For example, the Azura Power Project, which is lauded as, the first, independent power project, truly set up by private sector, by the private sector and financed by the private sector. However, what many of us do not know is that at the back of that investment, the government had to commit.
Okay, that aspect is anchored by the private sector.
By the private sector right now, yes.
And then driven to the...
It is driven to the Transmission Company of Nigeria, which oversees the transmission infrastructure of Nigeria. So, GENCOs produce power, send to the... send to the Transmission Company of Nigeria through the transmission infrastructure. And then the Transmission Company transports the power to the various, distribution networks, which are anchored by the DISCOs. The DISCOs,
as the private company.
Yes, as private companies. So the DISCOs are then responsible for distribution of power to households, to companies, to industries, and then also they are responsible for collection of
fee, tariff,
of revenues that have been billed.
Okay.
So the point is that we need to get rid of this entitlement mode where we say, oh, government has to pay for everything. Sorry, it doesn't work like that in the advanced countries of the world. Today, the government pays a certain amount of money, like I was saying to Azura, for under a take or pay contract. They have to pay because the government issued a sovereign guarantee to that effect.
Okay.
So now back to the issue. You raised the point about, is it right for them to raise tariffs?
Because
yes.
if you go, you said is yes. If you go to the rural areas, this power is in a whole 30 days in a month. Complete 30 days in a month. I can guarantee you, like in the village where I came from, you understand, we don't have electricity supply for 4 good hours now.
Correct.
Even in the advent of COVID-19, where Mr. President ordered free electricity for 3 months. 4 hours in a month. I'm not talking about 4 hours in a day. I said 4 good hours in a month.
Yes.
Apart from the epileptic nature of the supply, we pay these bills. And at the end of the month, because it is flat rate, we are not using these digital meters in the village. And then they still bring big, imaginary bills that our people pay. How do we get out of this quagmire?
So, Daniel,
Yes.
there are 2 issues.
Yes.
The first issue you need to understand is that the cost of generation of power is static. And even given the rise of COVID-19, the cost of generation of power has probably increased because of cost of operations. Okay? So if power is delivered, there is a cost to that power.
Okay.
Now, the day the power plant was set up, maybe 5 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, the plan was that sometime in 2020, we will increase the cost of power to the consumer. So if you're saying, I received the light, now they are increasing it. Okay, fine, I'm receiving the light. That is one issue. Because you can't say, oh, because I receive only light for only 12 hours a day, then now you want to increase the tariff. I will not accept. No, pay for the 12 hours you have consumed.
Good.
Exactly.
That is, even if we have hours, we will pay.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying, that you don't even supply this light, and you're even threatening to hike the price.
That is the second issue.
Okay.
Now, the second issue is, for those who are being billed, on a flat basis, where you just receive a flat bill every month, yes, that is why the consumer protection agencies, that's why even the National Assembly is there to protect the likes of those consumers. But I'd like us to distinguish and separate them. Should we raise the tariff of power? Yes. Is it correct to do so? Yes. There's no sentiment in answering that question.
Okay.
Now, let us look at the vulnerable, the people who are unable to pay that cost, or who are being cheated, or who perceive that they are being cheated by
who don't even
cost.
have meter.
Exactly.
And who were given or always been given imaginary bills.
Exactly. Now that is another issue that has to be addressed also by the National Assembly, by NEC. That is their role.
That if there must be digital meters for every household.
Every household.
If possible, FOC, free of charge, then they can pay the bills, the high price or whatever.
So it's like this. You see, because I'm a finance person,
yes,
I know that there is no free lunch anywhere. So even when you say free meters, yes, I'm scratching my head mentally like Daniel, don't go there. If the meters are free, who's going to pay for it?
Okay.
Look, people have to pay for it.
Okay.
But the thing is, what we're talking about and what is right is that we should protect the poor and the vulnerable. We should protect businesses such that they don't get ripped off. That's what we should be talking about. That's what the National Assembly should be talking about. That's what we should be discussing. Okay. Not that should they increase it. Of course they should increase it, because there is a cost to power.
All right.
Don't forget that in the Ease of Doing Business report, 2020, the biggest constraint to the development of the private sector in Nigeria is still the issue of power. So when we're saying, don't increase the cost of price, the cost of power, are you saying the
cost of supply?
Are you saying the Gencos should shut down? Are you saying the Discos should shut down?
Okay.
Because even if they increase it, as long as you receive it and you are able to use that same power to generate revenue for your business, there should be no complaints, really.
Of course.
You know, because as long as we have the power, there will be no complaints. That's really what we need to be talking about. So now back to the issue of the timing. At this time, it is a correct move to stop the hike in the price of power to the consumer. Okay. It is right because of the COVID-19. Okay. You know, COVID-19 has ensured that by World Bank, reports, we're going to lose 5 million jobs as a result of COVID-19.
5 million jobs.
Yeah, 5 million people are going to enter into poverty in the year 2020 as a result of COVID-19. Now, that is without factoring the population growth, and the number of people who are going to enter into the labor market in 2020. Already, the World Bank the IMF has also projected
2021.
In 2020, this year, the IMF has also projected that in this year, Nigeria's economy is going to contract by around 3.2%. What that means is that another recession is staring us in the face. So, 5 million this year.
Recession won't hit Wike and his River State.
Of course not. He just received a windfall of
78.9 billion. So, that is a big, a huge amount of revamping the economy of River State.
If it is allowed to go around.
It has to. They have used the money for infrastructure before, and now
it has to be reinvested in other aspects of the economy. It has to be reinvested in the infrastructure.
Like Mr. President is an economist.
So by 2021, if the situation continues, and mind you, the projections for a 3.2% contraction in the economy this year is only based on the fact that we are able to deal with COVID-19 by the third quarter of this year. If COVID-19 is not dealt with and eliminated in Nigeria, by 2021, we're looking at very dire situations, all right, regarding the economy, regarding people, sleeping below the poverty line. So, stopping a tariff hike is a good thing. But don't forget, someone still has to pay for the power that has been generated. So, and I'm saying to you that the federal government of Nigeria, which has to pay for those shortfalls, is suffering from lack of revenues. As a result of COVID-19, oil prices have slipped. As a result of people staying in their houses all over the world, industries being shut down, demand for crude oil has reduced. So, don't forget, 80% of Nigerian export is crude oil. 50% of total government revenues, 50%, is from crude oil. So if the crude oil benchmark for this year was fixed at $65, right? And today, oil is how much? Less than, 60% of that amount. Definitely, the ability of government to subsidize everything is severely limited. So when we say meters should be provided for free, I'm scratching my head.
Okay, let's say it's not for free.
How?
If we buy the meters.
Yes.
Like most households have ordered for meter and they have never gotten it.
True.
So what factor could lead to such behavior in the first place?
It is, you can put that smack and straight up on the discos. Because, first of all, once meters have been paid for, I see no reason why
this is happening predominantly at the rural areas.
Yes. There's no reason meters should not be provided within 3 weeks after you have made payment. So the first thing is the discos should have had it ready, but you don't have it ready. That's fine.
Do we have even an evaluation team in this to monitor, monitoring and evaluation team for this power supply or distribution? Because I am particularly talking for the rural area, the people dwelling, rural dwellers. Because in the town, they know that people knows they are right.
Yes.
At the villages, I am telling you categorically as a grassroots person that I am, that we don't have those things. Even if you pay for them, you won't get them. So what should be done?
What should be done? Well, a system needs to be set up, in the local governments, but don't forget, Nigeria is a very, very large place. And one thing you need to look into is that this thing is a chain, right? Many of the discos don't even know these places you mentioned even exist on the map, right? However, We have NEC, we have the Nigerian Consumer Protection Council. These are the ones who should use their organs to represent the people at the grassroots, to ensure that the people in the rural areas, when you pay for a meter, if you have not received the meter, you know who to complain to. You know who to follow up with. But if that is not happening, then it tells you about the strength or the weakness of those institutions who are supposed to protect the vulnerable consumers.
All right, we have just 4 minutes, but I'd like to stress on one point because you almost got me scared when you were talking about a recession. And that make me to say, perhaps I will invite you tomorrow. Let's look at the humanitarian gesture or ministry where the president is now proposing about 4,000 to 5,000 Empower scheme, for Nigerians. Because when you talked about recession is going to hit the country, about 5 million people are going to lose job.
No, slip below the poverty line.
Slip below the poverty line.
Yeah.
I got scared. And suddenly, I was reassured by the thinking that Mr. President and the Minister of Humanitarian and Disaster Management, Madam Sadia, they are doing something about how Nigerian youth could be busy, at least 4,000 to 5,000 Nigerian youth. I don't know whether they may still extend it to maybe 10,000 Nigerian youth, because going into reception is not what we will actually take anymore. In the reception of Mr. President 2015, you remember, we went into reception immediately because the fund was naturally or deliberately looted, the treasury. And then somehow he performed his magic. That's why I said perhaps he's Mr. President, or maybe he is an economist like you. I don't know. But he revamped the economy somehow, somewhat. And today here we are. COVID-19 has hit us, and we have to find a way to get out of it. Job loss, how do we reclaim our jobs, get job ourselves without being employed by anyone? I think that is another option for us, which you might help us tomorrow, if you wouldn't mind.
That'll be fine. I'll be glad to come around tomorrow to discuss it.
All right.
However, let's not see the forest for the trees.
Okay.
Let's not see Empower as a one-size-fits-all solution that will suddenly make Nigerians to come out of poverty.
Okay.
Don't forget, you only said 4,000 to 5,000 jobs.
Yes.
Okay. How many people need a job in Nigeria? It's a millions.
It's a
so
millions.
if the federal government is addressing just 4,000 to 5,000 people,
Youth.
Okay, fine. That's a good starting place.
Graduates.
But I have many questions surrounding that.
Okay.
What is the sustainability of Empower itself?
Okay.
Already, so perhaps we should leave that till tomorrow.
All
but
right.
There are so many questions that need to be answered. Not just to say, I see Empower as just being a band-aid if other things are not done.
Okay. A band-aid.
It's just a band-aid.
Okay.
Because it's a social solution. I mean, it's so you're trying
to have some stipends in your pocket.
Have stipends in your pocket.
You need to go and teach in a primary or secondary school.
What about the remaining millions? 23% of Nigerians.
Especially non-graduates.
Yes.
Artisans.
Yes.
Artisans too are having their money from the, central bank. And 150 billion naira was given to NISA for COVID-19. I don't even know how to access this. I'm still here. I need the money too.
You need the money too?
Yes.
You here?
I need the money. I need the money. Because I'm an entrepreneur too. I have to invest in my business.
I see. Well, let's discuss that tomorrow.
Exactly.
It's a huge issue to discuss.
It's a huge issue. Mr. Leke, thanks for coming to Spectacle today.
Thank you very much.
I would like to end the program here, and we will see tomorrow continue on Empower and probably other solutions for Nigerians on how they can get idealistic palliative to succor or cushion down the effect of COVID-19. And this is where Spectacle will stop today on television Nigerian. I've been speaking in the studio with a gentleman, a perfect analyst. He's an infrastructural and a finance consultant, and he has just done justice to the topic on discussion today. Do well to follow us on our social media platforms. Drop your comments, and don't forget, Spectacle will be on again tomorrow. And this is where we'll stop today. Thanks for watching, and I have been Daniel Atai. Welcome to Spectacle on Television Nigeria. I am your host, Daniel Atai.